quickly scribbled down some notes on this subject, and the first word I've written is the North, which I think is a good place to start on where Leeds sits. I think the change that has happened in the last 5 years across Yorkshire and across the north of England has been a real emphasis from ourselves as local politicians on the value of collaborating, whether it's on a local level between Leeds and Bradford and our surrounding districts, or on a pan-northern level between the big northern cities coming together and lobbying together for the north, not just for each other. For people who are, again, having just arrived, I've got the real disadvantage. I don't know what people have said already today, so I may well be repeating myself. But I think people will know if the north of England was a country, it'd be the 21st biggest in the world in terms of economic size, with an economy of about 300 million euros. We've got a population of 15 million. We've got 33 universities, and we've got an incredibly diverse economy as well. Again, a figure I often use, which seems to really stun people, I don't know why, is just within the city of Leeds, 30,000 people work in manufacturing. So that's twice as many people in Leeds work in manufacturing as work for the council. I think that just shows how strong our economy is. We also have a strength in the health sector and the digital and creative sector. And I really see the role of local government as changing, although I haven't been here for most of the day. I have, through the window of social media, seen what's been happening here. And I saw one of the polls earlier on what do people think the Northern Powerhouse means. And nearly 70% of people said it was a collective weight of the economy of the north of England. And only 4% said it was down to local government organisation. I think that's a real powerful message about what we can achieve as local politicians. Through the value of collaboration and improving investment is just a start. And what comes next is supporting business, supporting innovation, supporting entrepreneurialism to really get our economy growing. And that's and that for me is one of the real benefits across the north of England. I think it's also worth reflecting again when we're looking on the global scale, and we really should be lifting our eyes to that level, is if you drew a triangle from Liverpool, Sheffield to Newcastle, you're looking at a physical area a similar size to the New York metropolitan area or the Beijing metropolitan area. When we work together, we should be punching our weight on the national stage and on the international stage, and that's really the value of collaboration. Within the north of England, the Leeds City region is the biggest chunk of the economy. We've got an economy of about 60 billion pounds per year in terms of our economic size, and we're working together with the government on the growth deal to try and generate an extra 20,000 jobs in that area. And I think it's worth reflecting again on just the sheer size and scale. I was meeting a big investor in the city this morning, and they wanted to, as well as coming in and investing in the area, they wanted to have a broader conversation with ourselves and the business community about what the area is like. And it was just really interesting that this big national and international organisation, really when I started talking about some of our creative industries, our manufacturing industries, our base in terms of the health and innovation, their manufacturing didn't have a clue about what happens in the Leeds City region. I bet that's reflected across the north. So as well as collaborating, I think we also need to be speaking much louder about what we do. And I know different parts of the north of England are different. Manchester's famous for having a bit more swagger. Liverpudlians are famous for being very emotional. And I think sometimes in Yorkshire we're famous for having a less said the better attitude to life. And actually, sometimes the most said the better. We shouldn't undersell ourselves. We should really be pressing forward. How have we worked to achieve that? And I think starting to look not just about where we need to go in terms of the overall strategy, but what we need to achieve that. And I think one of the big themes for me is we need to improve some of the transport links across the north of England. I've talked about how geographically we compare to some of the big metropolitan spaces in the world, and then you start to think about, well, actually it takes you an hour to go 13 miles down the road to Sheffield on a train from Leeds. It takes you 4 hours to get from Liverpool to Newcastle on a train, and we have to fundamentally get our transport infrastructure right. I think we've done a lot of work, whether it's the local work, the Greater Manchester, ourselves in West Yorkshire have done, and other parts have done in bringing in investment for local transport infrastructure. But again, we need to raise our eyes and raise our eyes up to those some really transformational schemes that we need to achieve, whether it's linking cities better, so trying to achieve 30-minute journey time between some of our big cities, or whether it's looking at some of the ambitions about the schemes in Transport for the North, about putting a new road link under the Pennines between Sheffield and Manchester to bring those schemes together. And those are some of the things we need to be talking about in terms of where we want to be. And I don't think we should hold ourselves back because we lack ambition. But it's not just about transport as well. I think, again, this is just looking at some of the questions asked just now, that's a theme that comes up very strongly. The government spends far more on research and development and housing in London and South East than it does in the North, and we need to start seeing some of that investment in our part of the world. And we also want to not just focus on economic growth as an outcome, but look at the kind of jobs we are creating. Looking at moving towards a living wage economy where we're working together between the public sector, between universities and colleges, to get people in better skilled and better jobs with employers is really important. But we also need to reflect on the nature of the labour market. And again, it's a sobering statistic that nearly 36% of people employed in the north of England are employed in temporary contracts. We need more jobs and better jobs, and to reach an employment level of 75%, we need 600,000 new quality jobs in the north of England. We should be ambitious, and we should be ambitious for everybody in the north of England. We should also be investing in our people. There's a 12% early years gap between performance for poorest children under the age of 5 and the poorest children in the north of England. Our GCSE performance is behind the rest of the country, and we'll need 2.4 million more people qualified to level 3 or higher by 2022, and that's a challenge for all of us. Drawing this to a conclusion, I think the Northern Powerhouse is about expanding our influence, expanding our ability to deliver, and expanding the critical mass of our great cities and the rest of the north of England out into the rest of the world. It requires investment in infrastructure, and I think that's something we in the public sector really need to drive forward, but it also requires innovation, it requires investment. We need to be very clear with our private sector partners about how we want to take that forward. And again, sat in Leeds city centre where we are, I don't think we can ignore the impacts of flooding. We need investment we need investment to make sure we've got a stable economy, we've got the investment there. And flooding is an example where not just do we need investment in to solve the problem, but we also need to look at solutions that reach out beyond traditional local government boundaries. The solution to flooding in Leeds might be partly in Leeds, but it's also about looking at the whole geography of the north of England and how we can prevent flooding right across those boundaries. We're working together very closely on things like Transport for the North and for trade missions for China, but we must build on this success to continue our economic profile. And again, it's not just about investment, it's not just about jobs, not just about skills. I believe we need to rejuvenate local democracy in the north and have a genuine involvement in genuine involved people in how the north of England has been run, so we can have that really inclusive north. One thing that I really feel is for most of the last 25 years, the national government has a great focus on how we govern London, on how we govern Northern Ireland, Scotland and Wales. But England outside London has been a great black hole of government and public policy in terms of how we involve people, in terms of how we don't just work as local councillors, but how we work as big cities and regions across the north, and that is a big gap to form. Thank everybody for turning up today. I think it's been a really important debate. I hope I've added a Leeds perspective to it. I really believe there's a great potential in the north of England, and it's together by ourselves in the public sector pushing investment in the things we can do and bringing together the private sector can achieve that. Thank you very much.